Sandrine Dixson-Decleve, Earth for All, A Survival Guide for Humanity. Dive into Earth for All, A Survival Guide for Humanity, by Sandrine Dixson-Decleve to understand the pressing need for an equitable, sustainable, and economically just world. The book sheds light on the challenges that low-income countries face, such as wealth inequality, the impacts of climate change, and debt structures, as well as the need for a vastly different approach in reducing our global carbon footprint. Key themes include the crucial role of women and the elderly in addressing population growth, the urgent need for sustainable agricultural practices, and the crucial necessity to shift away from fossil fuels and into the era of green energy.
Bridging wealth inequality. Gross wealth inequality poses a significant problem in today's world, where the richest billion people consume 72% of Earth's resources while the poorest 1.2 billion consume only 1%. Meanwhile, high-income countries produce the most carbon emissions, with low-income countries suffering the most from the effects. A global economic overhaul, including changes to the IMF debt structure, a global Green New Deal, carbon tax, and relaxation of intellectual property laws, could help low-income countries thrive and tackle climate change. In the face of stark contrasts in wealth and their consequences, it's evident that our world needs a solution. Disparity is clearly illustrated when you consider the challenges faced by a struggling Indian farming family in contrast to the excessive lifestyle of a billionaire in California. Wealth inequality stands as one of our greatest global challenges. The planet's richest billion consume an astounding 72% of its resources. Conversely, the poorest 1.2 billion, who predominantly reside in low-income countries, have access to a meager 1%. While high-income countries generate the largest portion of carbon emissions, low-income countries suffer the brunt of the environmental impact. To add insult to injury, wealthy corporations often transfer polluting manufacturing processes to developing regions. For low-income countries to truly make progress and adopt green technologies required to combat climate change, a radical shift in the global economic system must occur. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, needs to revisit its regulation of global debt, which significantly hinders low-income countries due to massive debt obligations, further exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Implementing a global debt relief package could immediately benefit their economies by strengthening currency and freeing up funds for social and ecological investments, leading to growth and increasing prosperity. Alongside this financial revamp, a global Green New Deal should be introduced. This would legislate against corporations investing in polluting industries within developing countries, encouraging a transition to green technologies worldwide. By implementing a carbon tax specifically aimed at carbon producers and acknowledging the responsibility of those emitting pollutants rather than just where they occur, the global carbon footprint could be significantly reduced. Finally, adjustments to intellectual property laws protecting patents on green technologies could be crucial in enabling poorer countries to swiftly implement sustainable and environmentally friendly farming and manufacturing methods. By relaxing these restrictions, low-income countries are granted better opportunities to improve their economic standing and contribute to the global fight against climate change. To bridge wealth inequality and create a sustainable future for all, a profound overhaul in our global economic system is paramount. Putting comprehensive solutions in place will pave the way for a greener and more equitable world. Empowering women, elevating humanity. Population growth is an ongoing challenge, but the solution isn't merely slowing growth. Instead, empowering women and the elderly can bring about significant change. By addressing education and income disparities, we can not only control population growth but also achieve economic stability and social progress. Population growth has been a major concern for the environment, as Earth's resources are finite and ever more people are competing for them. In the past century, we've seen the global population double twice, and if this trajectory continues, we'll eventually reach an overwhelming 11 billion. While reducing population growth may seem like the obvious solution, there are more effective, ethical answers. By empowering vulnerable groups like women and the elderly, we can not only curb growth but also improve quality of life and foster sustainable communities. Curiously, population growth isn't uniform across the world. Affluent regions have lower birth rates, averaging around 2 children per woman, while low-income countries have far higher rates. In West Africa, for example, the birth rate hovers around 6 or 7 children per woman. This discrepancy largely stems from education and career opportunities. Well-educated women who have access to family planning resources tend to delay starting a family and ultimately have fewer children, while also contributing to a higher household income. If we want to encourage responsible population growth, we must improve educational access in low-income regions. By reworking debt structures, these countries can better invest in quality education that promotes social mobility and economic growth. Additionally, introducing universal basic income (UBI) schemes can benefit disadvantaged areas. Evidence from pilot programs in India shows that UBI results in better nutrition, education, and overall economic growth. Rather than view initiatives like UBI as mere expenditures, we should embrace them as investments that drive economic growth and support an aging world population. As the Earth's elderly population increases, demands for health care and support services will rise. Providing a substantial UBI is instrumental in maintaining their well-being in the years to come. The authors suggest taking this concept a step further by introducing a universal basic dividend, UBD. Companies would pay fees for utilizing Earth's resources, and the accrued funds would be equally distributed among all global citizens as dividends. By empowering vulnerable groups through education, income security, and innovative, sustainable solutions like UBD, we can not only address population growth but also create a more just, prosperous world. Sustainable intensification now. The unsustainable practices of the global agriculture system cause malnutrition, disease, and environmental degradation. To mitigate these issues, we must adopt regenerative agriculture practices, halt land expansion, and reduce our reliance on animal and dairy products. This shift will require a change in political and economic systems for a more sustainable future. Both a young woman from a low-income country and a young man from a high-income country struggle with food-related health issues due to the inequitable and unsustainable global farming and food distribution system. The young woman lacks access to diverse, nutritious food and faces chronic undernutrition, while the young man has access to abundant, unhealthy, processed food, leading to obesity and increased risk of chronic diseases. Agriculture, in its present state, is damaging our planet. The industry is a leading source of carbon emissions, biodiversity loss, deforestation, pollution, and overfishing. Forecasts predict that we will need to produce 50% more food by 2050 to meet the growing population demand while facing more frequent extreme weather events that reduce the amount of arable land. Our current model focuses on monocultural crop production concentrated in a few regions, which only adds to the precariousness of our global food system. To tackle these challenges, we need to adopt a more sustainable and equitable approach, sustainable intensification, or doing more with less. To accomplish this, we must halt land expansion, reduce carbon output from farms, and efficiently produce food. One strikingly simple solution lies in our soil, an often overlooked natural carbon store. Traditional agricultural practices have stripped soil of 50 to 70% of its carbon stock, with much of that carbon becoming carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. By embracing regenerative agriculture practices, such as crop rotation, diverse crops, and the use of cover crops, we can improve the soil's stability and carbon storage capacity. These methods also prevent pests and diseases from spreading, thereby reducing the need for polluting pesticides. Additionally, innovative seeding technologies can limit stored carbon's exposure to oxygen. This shift would allow for increased local food production on less land. Implementing these changes, however, will have considerable costs. To truly make a difference, an overhaul of the political system driving global economic practices must occur. A radical rethinking of global agriculture policy is imperative for the survival of our planet and the well-being of its citizens. Altering agricultural practices is only part of the solution. Those in high-income countries must also drastically change their diets by adopting a planetary health diet. This diet does not demand complete abstinence from animal products but requires a significant reduction in the consumption of unsustainable animal and dairy products. Thanks to innovations in plant-based and lab-grown alternatives, it's possible to make these changes without entirely giving up our favorite foods. In summary, to create a healthier, more sustainable, and equitable food system, we must shift to regenerative agriculture, halt land expansion, and alter our consumption patterns on a global scale. By doing so, we will not only improve the well-being of individuals like the young woman and man in our example but also protect our planet for generations to come. Embracing a fossil fuel-free future. The 2015 Paris Agreement highlights the need to address climate change by reducing carbon emissions and warming levels. Though many countries haven't yet decreased their reliance on fossil fuels, transitioning to renewable energy is possible and essential. By improving efficiency, going electric, and accepting green power, we can power our lives and support a sustainable, cleaner future. The 2015 Paris Agreement paved the way for global collaboration to combat climate change. One major goal involves curbing warming levels to under 2 degrees Celsius, which requires having carbon emissions every decade starting from 2020. However, most participating nations still struggle to significantly reduce their dependency on fossil fuels. The challenge lies in the fact that altering our relationship with fossil fuels entails restructuring the global economy. These fuels have deep roots within industrial capitalist systems, and the fossil fuel lobby wields considerable power and influence. Nevertheless, a life without fossil fuels is both attainable and necessary. Rather than solely relying on coal and oil, we can focus on the functions they provide, such as housing, warmth, transportation, and communication, and find alternative solutions in renewable energy. Transitioning to a fossil fuel-free world involves a three-pronged approach. First, we need to optimize efficiency in our energy use, especially in critical sectors like transportation. Moving forward, we should prioritize not only electric vehicles but also innovative rideshare opportunities, enhanced public transport, and redesigned networks for pedestrians and cyclists. Identifying and implementing efficiencies across various areas is crucial. Secondly, swapping carbon molecules for electrons will prevent further heating of the planet. According to environmentalist Bill McKibben, we should avoid building anything new that requires a flame. Transitioning from existing fossil fuel infrastructure may be challenging, but cleaner alternatives like green hydrogen and ammonia can ease the shift. Lastly, it's essential to accept that green power is already here and the future belongs to renewable energy. As renewable energy becomes more cost-effective than fossil fuels, it's only a matter of time before they surpass non-renewable sources in all aspects of the market. Many regions have the potential to satisfy their entire electricity needs through solar and wind power, awaiting only the proper infrastructure. Embracing renewable energy can do more than replace our current fossil fuel-dependent systems, it can improve them. With abundant green power, we can drive complex carbon capture processes and efficiently recycle waste products. By shifting to electric solutions and renewable resources, we can pave the way for a bright, sustainable future.
As we wrap up the insights from Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity, it is evident that humanity desperately needs a paradigm shift that encompasses global wealth redistribution, debt relief, and a rethinking of our global economic system. The book underscores the necessity of empowering women and the elderly, shifts in agricultural practices, and a transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy for the preservation of our planet. In essence, true global progress lies in giving voice to those most affected by the issues at hand, implementing comprehensive policies that tackle climate change and economic disparities, and investing in a future that benefits all who share this earth.